Israel is expanding its operation against Hamas in Gaza. It signaled the move just hours after the UN Security Council passed a watered-down resolution that stopped short of calling for a ceasefire. The conflict is now in its 12th week, and as Israeli ground forces carry out house-to-house searches, its warplanes are hitting targets from the air. The official Palestinian news agency says a strike on a refugee camp killed multiple people overnight. Meantime, Israel has ordered people from a community in central Gaza to head south immediately. The UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency estimates that could result in another 150,000 people pouring into a zone that's already facing a humanitarian disaster. The agency's chief took to social media to blast the new evacuation order, saying people in Gaza are not pieces on a checkerboard. Many have already been displaced several times. The Israeli army just orders people to move into areas where there are ongoing airstrikes. No place is safe. Freelance journalist Trent Murray has more from Tel Aviv.
Yeah, Neil, that's right. Going on 24 hours now since that UN security vote. But in Gaza, we've not seen any immediate change based on that resolution passing. We know there's been heavy fighting throughout the Gaza Strip across this Saturday. One of the main challenges with humanitarian aid is there's just not enough of it, according to the UN and also the European Union, who's put out a fresh warning now saying that the entire Gaza Strip is at risk of famine. We understand one of the main logistical challenges, according to officials on the ground, is the inspection of the aid going in. Right now, Israel is doing that. They say they're doing it for security reasons. Effectively, they want to make sure that weapons aren't being smuggled in. But UN officials say that that inspection process is not happening fast enough, which is what's causing food and water and medicine to be in short supply. But while all of that happens, heavy clashes continuing. We've had a major update from the IDF on their operation on the ground today. They say that they've captured over 200 terror operatives, as they describe them, from both Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. All of them have now been brought back to Israel, we have been told, where they are being questioned by the country's military intelligence agency.
And Trent, while all of this is happening in Gaza, Israel continues to deal with Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants along its northern border with Lebanon. And there's been some fighting today. What can you tell us?
That's right. Incoming rocket sirens sounding almost every hour across the week this Saturday in northern Israel, with the IDF saying that Hezbollah group fired a number of rockets in towards the northern part of the country. Now, it's worth remembering a lot of northern Israel is evacuated right now as a safety precaution. Many towns up there are effectively empty. But in response, we've been told the IDF not only launched artillery strikes on the launch sites, they say, of those Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, but they also deployed the Israeli Air Force, launching a number of preemptive strikes on military infrastructure. That all comes as the IDF spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, has warned that Hezbollah is turning the southern part of Lebanon into a combat zone. He has warned that they risk plunging the entire state of Lebanon into war. And this is exactly what many analysts have raised concerns about, as tensions continue to simmer on that northern border, that just one miscalculation could see a whole new conflict open up in a whole new region just north of Israel.
Thanks, Trent. In Tel Aviv, people are gathering in the street to voice their anger at the Israeli government. Journalist Rebecca Collard is at the event.
I didn't find a country that was filled with hate.
I don't know if you can see behind me, if I can kind of give you a bit of a look here. There's probably about 1,000 people, and people are still joining this protest in central Tel Aviv. Now, this has been billed as an anti-government protest. Most people I've been talking to have really talked about being here because they want the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to leave office. And, you know, if you remember, Neil, there was really more than a year of anti-government protests across Israel before October 7th, before this attack by Hamas into southern Israel. And we saw them weekly. And a lot of people that I'm talking to here today are saying they were attending those protests every week. Now, over the last 2 or so months, we've seen those protests really die down. And today we're seeing really what one person was telling me is back to the kind of numbers that they were seeing before. People here are very angry. A lot of people here blame Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for what happened on October 7th, for what's happening in the country now. And because of that, they've come out to show their opposition to his government. And everybody I'm talking to here is saying that he needs to resign now. And, some people have gone as far as to say that, this war is acting as a cover for him, that, in this time of war, he's able to stay in power. And if this war wasn't happening right now, that he would not be able to stay in power. So you can hear them yelling, I think, behind me. That's how angry people here in Tel Aviv are tonight, Neil.
And Rebecca, as we mentioned, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution to boost humanitarian aid to Gaza. Do Israelis care about this? What's the reaction like?
Yeah, nobody here is really talking about this resolution, but I'll just say, talking to aid workers today, listening to what Palestinians have to say about this, I think there's a real feeling that this resolution, even though it was passed by the United Nations Security Council, really has no teeth. So as far as we know, it has not resulted in the increase in aid at all 24 hours later. And I think more importantly, it doesn't have a mechanism for enforcing that. So even though this has been passed by, the world's strongest states, the UN Security Council, there's no way to actually force and to actually ensure that this aid gets in. And I'll just say, and I'll just add to that, Neil, this resolution, there was almost a week of negotiations by UN Security Council members. The U.S. Constantly wanting different language. Of course, as we know, the language of a ceasefire, cessation of hostilities is actually taken out of this resolution. And in the end, after all of this, all these negotiations and the U.S. not allowing, this sort of wanting to change the wording, wanting to remove the mechanism for aid that other countries wanted in, it didn't even result in the U.S. voting yes to this Security Council resolution. It resulted in them abstaining. And I think that abstention, Neil, and I think part of the reason why aid groups, Palestinians and others that are watching what's happening with the humanitarian situation are so worried is because I think the U.S.'s abstention from that vote shows that they're not willing anytime soon anyway, to use any of the levers or influence they have over the Israeli government to ensure that that aid is allowed to get in. Because of course, what aid groups are saying is that this is great that you passed this resolution, but while this heavy bombardment of the Gaza Strip continues, it's impossible to deliver that aid. It's not safe. It's not feasible. So they're saying, they really need a cessation of hostilities to be able to deliver that aid. And there also needs to be a mechanism to enforce this resolution by the UN Security Council.
Journalist Rebecca Collard in Tel Aviv.